Live, and this is the TWIS Minion Science Island Hangout, and I'm at Dyer in sweltering Connecticut. Had the air conditioner on a couple of times this week, and joining me are two mechanics, A.J. Smith and Patrick Pecoraro.
I'm not a mechanic.
No. A.J., you posted a picture of a gas tank. You had taken a gas tank out of a car. Now, I'm no expert, but I think cars tend to run a lot better when the gas tank is inside them than when they're out. What the heck
have
are
an
you doing?
external gas tank.
That's true.
Trucks have external gas tanks. Semis have external gas tanks.
Mine runs right down the middle of the car, and it's probably longer than I am. And it's been really difficult. I have to do that because the engine I'm putting in my car is tuned to a certain size fuel pump because it requires more gas. So I have to take out 2 gas tanks and put them back in. But they do run better with them in, but right now they're not running at all.
Do you have a problem? I think of fumes even, or something like that. That sounds like a pretty dangerous operation.
Oh yeah, I was getting pretty dizzy last night. Had to seal up some lines.
What is this vehicle of yours?
It's a MR2.
I don't know what that is.
It's a Toyota from the 90s. It's like the poor man's Ferrari. It's a mid-engine, rear-wheel drive, turbo, 2-seater.
More of a sports car?
Or curved?
It's the curved one, but I've done a lot of body work to mine to smooth it out. It's called a smoothie. But yeah, it's a sports car for sure. It's just a little 2-seater. The engine's behind you, and it's got a lot of power.
What year? How long you been working on it?
One of them's a 92, the other one's a 91, and the engine I'm putting in it's a Japanese domestic market engine from 93.
Wow.
So a lot of differences in the wiring and how it all hooks up.
So you'll be taking part perhaps in some car shows with that?
Yeah, I could probably get in some magazines too if I took some good photos.
How many miles are on them?
On the cars, my car has almost 250,000 miles on it. The engine only has about 50,000. I've done some drag racing before. I really get into that.
Drag racing. Legal or illegal?
Legal. I've got a little switch on my car's computer for pump gas and race gas, which allows me to adjust it depending on what I'm doing with it. There's lots of buttons and switches.
That's exciting. That is amazing. So you'll have there'll be antiques. What's my math? 91. That's 20-something. That's 23 years. 25 years is an antique. You're a couple of years away from having two antiques.
Yeah, no.
That was 25 years an antique.
It might be 30, but I'm really excited.
I don't know. I thought it might be, but I don't know.
An antique is like a century.
Legally, I remember from when you had the gas emission, the what is the gas thing you had to put in the cars? Maybe 10 or so years back, I forget one. Had a little converter, and you had to go get and you had to have it tested. But if your car was more than 25 years old, and I don't know if they classified that as an antique, but there was a classification. And if your car was that old, you didn't have to have it tested.
Yeah. Same thing with custom rides, too. The restrictions are much less, and you don't have to pay as much property tax and get them tagged all the time.
That could be a pretty valuable car if you're talking about property tax. Insurance? I don't know. What's insurance on a car like that? Must be heavy if you get it.
Yeah, it can get pretty expensive. It's hard to get everything insured when they're customized to this point. You got to really back up all your sales receipts and everything like that, and it gets really expensive.
Well, from your race winnings, you can pay for all that anyway. So.
I'm hoping.
I had a question, AJ, particularly for you. You like driving, I would guess. And we read a lot about these automated cars. Automated cars of the future. You step in, you say, car, take me to X, and it drives you there, and you don't have to do anything. I am guessing that you're not someone who would like that type of car. So if you had a choice, if somebody said, okay, here's this perfectly working automated vehicle, or your all ordinary stick shift thing, which would you pick?
Well, I have two thoughts on this. I would rather have a manual car that's not fully automated with all these electronics. You get a much better feel for what's going on when you're driving, but for the rest of the population, I would prefer that they have automated cars to reduce the risk of accidents. Because I haven't gotten in an accident in 20 years, I don't think. I'm a really good driver, careful, safe. But it seems like everyone else is a little careless, especially with everyone texting.
I prefer that people who think they're good drivers have an automated car, because they're probably really not.
Patrick, do you like driving? I know you like biking, but do you like driving?
Driving on, like, windy roads can be fun, but driving to work is pointless.
I have friends who, I've got a cousin. Man, the first thing she wants to do to relax is just head for the open road. She just loves driving her little, I forget what it is, little stick shift. So do you, I mean, nobody likes commuting. That's just, I don't know anybody who likes commuting. But for pleasure driving, there are a lot of people who like, some people who like pleasure driving. Our road in Connecticut, the Merritt Parkway, was designed for pleasure riding. So, are there times, Patrick, where you'd like to just hop in your car and drive somewhere?
Nope.
Okay. Then I'm going to guess you vote no. You want that automated car, perhaps. Like me.
I don't have a problem with people who like to drive for fun. I have a problem when they're doing it and being jerks about it.
What are the, I guess, I don't know, Nebraska, big state, a lot bigger than Connecticut. In Connecticut, there's really, the most you can drive anywhere is like an hour or so. And as far as backcountry roads, I got about 5 miles of backcountry roads. Everything else is basically your highway driving, and highway driving is not fun at all. Houston, I would imagine driving around Houston is not fun at all.
Not really. There's no real, as far as I know, there's no real, there's no Bob Boozer Boulevard like in Omaha. Like, that's the best road in Omaha.
Well, I'm going to jump into a story
AJ,
about...
your mic's muted.
I had a lot of fun driving in Houston. I felt like I was in a race the whole time.
Where were you driving in Houston? Where you could actually drive and feel like you were in a race? If you drive in Houston, you're stuck in traffic the entire time. There is no race in Houston.
Well, I know. It's just, there's so many lanes. There's like 5 lanes on each side. Just driving around downtown was pretty fun. Especially how the overpasses are all intertwined. That's a game.
With you
Yeah, you
guys,
shouldn't be driving on public roads if that's the way you feel about it.
Like I said, it's been 20 years since I hit somebody. So.
Have you ever been to California? There's 405 from Los Angeles north, and what I remember about that road is, number one, you go from a complete traffic jam that can last more than an hour, where you have bikers flying in between the lanes at like 90 miles an hour or something. And when you do get moving...
Okay, first off, define bikers. Bicycles or...
No. Motorcyclists. Motorcyclists. I'm not going to say Hell's Angels.
When I hear biker, I assume bicycle. Say motorbike or motorcycle, and then I understand.
Okay. I don't know. Biker pretty much covers it for me, but I mean, the bikers out there, again, I was out there for like a week or two. The most insane drivers I've ever seen. And when you get towards Beverly Hills, what happens is the outside fast lane, you get the sports cars, the real expensive sports cars, and the people in Beverly Hills doing like 105 miles an hour. I think it was Steve McQueen. The California police were trying to catch that guy, and they finally did catch him. You know, they just couldn't catch him. In any event, I know another place that's got an exciting road, the Autobahn in Germany. And what's also exciting that's happening in Germany is they have set a record high for solar use on June 9th. Country's solar power rose to 23.1 gigawatts, 56% of all electrical demand. So they got 50% of their electrical needs from solar power. And a key thing that Germany has done is they have their focus on rooftop solar panels, businesses, buildings. They say over 90% of the mounted solar panels in the country are on rooftops. They broke 2 other records at the same time, producing 24.24 gigawatts of solar generated power between 1 and 2 p.m. And over the entire week, the country produced 1.26 TW. What's that?
Terawatts.
Terawatts of electricity from solar power.
1,000 times more.
1,000 times? That's a lot.
Than a gigawatt, which is 1,000 times more than a megawatt, which is 1,000 times more than a kilowatt.
Okay.
That's 1,000 times more than a watt.
Germany is a country. I like so many of the things that Germany does. They do spend government money on programs like solar panel, a lot of money on training people when they get out of work, but their tax rate isn't that high. They have a strong alliance between business, government, and unions. You don't hear about strikes happening in Germany. And so they've mounted this campaign, subsidies from the government, ad campaign, and the movement is part of the German government's plan to reduce greenhouse emissions due to electricity being produced in coal-fired plants, while simultaneously, now they're phasing out nuclear power plants. All such plants they want to have closed by 2022.
I think that's stupid.
Yeah, me too.
Problematic, yeah. If they in fact go to complete solar panels, maybe wind power, I don't know, wouldn't that be better than a nuclear power?
Nope.
Okay, why not?
Windmills take up a lot of space. Nuclear does not.
Mm-hmm. Migration issues?
Yep. Bird migration issues. It changes the weather on the ground, which if you're putting them on the coast doesn't mean much because then, or is a good thing because it absorbs all of the wind coming in from a hurricane. But if you're in the middle of somewhere else and you need weather patterns like normal, then that might be an issue.
Okay, I can see that problem with wind panels. What about solar panels?
Solar panels also take up a lot of room, and they only work during the day. Now, putting on rooftops makes sense. Having individual solar farms makes no sense because you can just put them on the roof.
That's Germany's emphasis. I guess same thing with apartments. Any kind of space, I assume.
And they require large batteries, and what does that do to the environment?
Depends on what type of battery it is. If it's a thermal battery, then not much. But if it's like a chemical, lead acid or lithium polymer or what have you, then there's a lot of mining and whatnot that goes into creating those, and usually it's strip mining or mountaintop removal or something, and it can leach into the environment and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, solar with a base load of nuclear, I think, is the way to go.
So you think
for
we
night,
should...
solar for during the day, and for peak consumption and whatnot.
So it would be a good idea for individuals to have the solar panels on their rooftops, let's say, but also where we need that greater amount of electrical power, rely on nuclear. How long does it take to build a nuclear power plant?
Right now it takes about 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't really been building nuclear reactors in a really long time. They're all getting really old.
The one just outside of Omaha in Fort Calhoun just went under a like 6-month retrofit, so it's good to go for like another 20 years or something.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, a lot of them are getting long in the tooth, which could cause issues if they don't undergo some serious upgrades down the line. But I mean, there's the whole anti-nuclear crap that's been going on with uninformed publics and whatnot.
Right.
Who think they're informed but are really not.
Are any nuclear power plants being built in the U.S.?
No, I think there might be one or two, but I don't think there's any more than that.
Last time I checked, it's been 20 years since we built one. They're all very old.
Well, I think there were some projects that were trying to get built, but they're trying to get approval, and it's very hard to get approval nowadays for nuclear.
Let's see here.
Chris would know.
When you mentioned, AJ, I think about batteries, but if there are improvements in battery technology, and so you need a battery that can store the energy, all the energy you need overnight for overnight power, or when there's cloudy days or something. I think you'd always need a backup. Either your solar power.
It's not a backup. It's a base load.
Okay, base load then.
Base load power is the power source you use when the inclement power sources are not producing. So base load would be like the power generated by, I don't know, wind while your coal power plant is undergoing maintenance, or when your wind is dead and there's just doldrums and the coal power plant is still going. They supplement each other. But you need something that's there continuously so that you just don't lose power straight out. Sure.
You kind of need a hybrid solution. It really depends on the geography of where you're trying to produce the power, which your solution would be. I'm looking here at the U.S. Energy Information site, and it says the last newly built reactor to enter service was one, wait, Watts Bar 1, Tennessee in 1996. So that's almost 20 years.
They wanted to build one in July of 2013. The TVA estimate that commercial operation of Watts Bar 2 could begin in December of 2015. So there is one being built.
Mm-hmm.
And they're
licensed for 40 years.
And then they started to do that in 2007. So it's taking almost a decade, about 8 years to build a nuclear reactor.
That's not too bad. 8 years, actually.
That's horrible. You should be able to build one in like a year or two. What's the regulation for building a coal-fired power plant? How long does it take to build one of those?
No idea. What I like the idea of people becoming more independent, sustainability, and I think of solar power as far as each of us having either panels on our houses, cars, whatever. It's gaining independence from the power grid, and if you can rely on your own sources for most of your power, and then the power grid when you need it.
That's base load. That's what base load is.
Okay. So, I like the idea of promoting solar power. I agree with you that nuclear power is the best idea, certainly well more than coal, let's say. And I also agree that, and I don't see any movement at all towards building a lot of nuclear power plants in the United States. That going to take really a major change in politics and people's thinking?
What do you guys pay per kilowatt for electricity?
I haven't even checked lately.
No clue.
I just found out today I'm paying 14 cents per kilowatt, which I feel is fairly high.
I've got, well, I don't use a lot of power. Well, I have my computers on, my fan is on, and during summer, the hot days in summer, maybe twice a week, I've got my air conditioner on. That's pretty much it. And my electric bill averages around $50 to $60 a month.
For some unknown reason, mine was 136.
Holy man, 100 for your apartment?
Yeah.
That's insane.
I have a loft space though, so there's a lot of volume of air that I'm not using that still has to be heated up before the rest of it heats up. There's also a crack hole thing. I can see sunlight through over there, and I just lowered the temperature in my refrigerator, and I added some thermal mass that I hope will keep it from using too much electricity. I also just ordered a induction burner because I do a lot of cooking on my stove, and that's supposed to be a little bit more efficient, so I'm hoping that will help.
Okay.
Hoping that the induction burner pays for itself over the next month or two.
Wow. I don't think, I think the people in my apartment building with maybe one or two kids, they're like $100. I'm going to guess there's almost nobody in my apartment building, and we're talking 1,000 square foot, 2-bedroom apartments, that's going to be paying $150 a month for electricity. Homes, yes, there are homes, yes. In fact, even homes, I don't know recently, this may be 10 years ago, but even for the people I knew with homes, they were only talking about a little over $100 a month. My father. Wow.
Yeah, I'm not sure what. I've heard people that have homes in Omaha that have only paid like $50, $60 for like a 2-story, 3-bedroom house, but including a basement. So I don't know.
And you're
trying
in
to
Houston.
seriously augment. Yeah. Houston's the most air-conditioned place in the world. I'm trying to seriously augment my apartment so that it doesn't have.
Yeah,
We're
air
also-
conditioning.
Oh,
How about
no,
you,
my
AJ?
air conditioning doesn't run during the day. It only runs when I get home. And when it doesn't run during the day, it gets up to 88 degrees in here, or higher.
How about you, AJ?
What's the question?
How much do you usually spend on your electricity bill? How big's your place?
It's not very big. It's not over 1,000 square feet or anything, but from what I recall, it would, in the summer, be about $130 for electricity.
Alright, I'm not too pissed off about my thing, but still. I think my biggest power draw is my air conditioner, my stove, and my fridge. Although my computer's always on, but it shouldn't be using more than $1 a day, or 50 cents a day.
That's probably my biggest power consumers because it's got those Xeon processors in them.
Yeah, mine's got dual Xeon. Right now it's actually pulling, one sec here. $300 watts.
Yeah, I'm 361 on mine.
This includes my monitor, my internet, my speakers, and my Mac Pro, and my router. If I was to do some high-intensive processing, then it would get a lot higher. But I think it's maxed out at like 400 watts. It's got a kilowatt power supply, but I don't use that. I do have 6 hard drives in it, though.
Kind of hard to get off the grid in a big city, though, like Houston, I think.
Well, you can't get off the grid in an apartment. I don't have...
Yeah.
I mean, I have access to the power box. I suppose I could hotwire it, but I don't know what I'm going to use as my source of power.
You know, there are some communities, though. I read more and more about these communities where they collectively, you know, maybe a group of 100 homes or something, and they get together and pool their money and, you know, get a solar panel and get most of their energy from solar panel use. Again, pooling their money.
I'm waiting for Solar City to be available in more cities. What does AJ got up here?
It's the primary energy consumption by source and sector as of 2012. Looks like petroleum's the biggest.
Solar is only like 0.2% of U.S. power, which is really crappy. Even though California just had a new, California or Arizona, Nevada or something, they just had a new solar power plant come online, but that's like only one plant, so.
Texas. Texas is #1 in solar power generation. California.
No, wind.
Oh, it's wind?
Texas is #1 in wind production.
Oh, okay. I thought it was solar.
My power comes from wind,
Mm-hmm.
which is why it's probably so expensive. If I went with like oil or coal fire plants, it would probably be like 10 cents per kilowatt or something like this.
Yeah, since they're not building new nuclear power plants, does that mean we're still getting most of our plants from, well, it'll be natural gas, coal, fracking,
Coal.
natural gas from fracking, and coal.
It's all coal. Natural gas doesn't make up that much. I mean, it's significantly more than solar and wind probably, but it's not like 30% or anything like this.
So it's mostly from coal?
Yeah.
Here is a chart
Wow.
of the history of our energy sources. Looks like everything started going up in the 50s.
Petroleum, natural gas. Oh, maybe it is more. Coal, nuclear. I'm surprised nuclear is so high. It's what, 8%?
Yeah, right around there.
Can't really quite see.
Wood's going down, that's good.
wood, hydroelectric, nuclear coal. Coal's going down, that's good. Natural gas, yeah, coal's being exchanged, or natural gas is being exchanged for coal. I'm surprised petroleum's so high up there. Is that just for home power, or is that for car consumption?
That's for car also.
That's
it's good in that last one, transportation.
Okay.
So really, if you're talking about heating homes, it's got to be natural gas and coal.
Yeah.
That's almost half between the two of them. Wow. Because natural gas, if we're talking about getting our natural gas through fracking, you're using up tons of water. Coal, I can't think anything good about coal. I guess the plants are getting cleaner, but I don't see any evidence that that's going to change anytime soon.
Elon Musk is going to build a gigafactory for solar cells in New York. I think they plan to be operational by 2020 something.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be the largest solar factory in the world.
Okay. That is the trend we need.
So yeah, we don't have like government subsidy stuff, but Solar City is an interesting company because what they do is they rent you the solar cells, they install them, and you get a flat electricity bill every month, which is like, depending on where you're at and how much you install and whatnot, could be like 80 bucks, 70 bucks, but it's flat, so it's the entire same thing every month. But they're not in every city. They're only in select places. Like, I'd like to have my parents sign up for them, but they're not in Omaha as far as I know. I haven't checked recently. They might have changed that, but...
Isn't there some states, obviously through the oil lobby, or the energy company lobbies, want to have a line charge? As long as you're hooked up to the power grid, you will pay X amount of money whether you use it or not. And that's in reaction to something like Solar City. I think
Chris has been trying to join the Hangout, but he's having issues.
Okay, I'll try and send him the link. Could be an issue.
Okay, let's jump
Yeah,
a bit.
he needs to have the link sent to him. I'll send it to his email real quick here.
He will definitely help us in our space stuff, I hope. You guys are doing that. I'm going to jump into just a quick story. Unfortunate story, sad story. Smithsonian National Zoos, excuse me, their invertebrate exhibit is closing. They will close to the public tomorrow, and the last day to visit the invertebrate house is today. So they announced the closing on the 15th. 6 days later, it's closed. Just 6 days of advance notice, and I suspect that's because they were concerned about a lot of negative reaction, and they're getting some. And in an interview, this is an interview in Wired magazine by Gwen Pearson. She talked to the zoo director, Dennis Kelly, about his decision to close the exhibit, and the first question was, why did it happen so abruptly? Now, he says, the short notice was my judgment that once an exhibit is scheduled for closure, it's difficult to maintain it to our standard of quality, the decommissioning process will take time and attention from the staff. 6 days? Not buying it. There are no plans to lay off staff. That's good. They'll be reassigned to other units, and the zoo has multiple openings right now and several unfulfilled positions, staffing problems. Now, they say one aspect of that staffing issue is the problems the zoo had around December 2013 that led to a zookeeper injury and deaths of several animals. And the zoo's care were blamed on a lack of funding and too few staff. I don't know when that happened if they were claiming that they didn't have enough staff to take care of the problems. But in any event, the closures won't affect the zoo's participation in several major conservation breeding programs. One is the Golden Orb Weaver spider breeding for the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, and they're also a major partner on coral breeding programs. And he said it was very clear that conservation breeding will continue, saying they will work with their partners, Smithsonian Institute, including the National Museum of Natural History. Specifics on how that will happen, though, in quotations, will be decided over the next few months, which means possibly never. So the building, they're not going to put anything in. It's going to remain empty. Their outdoor pollinator plant will remain open, but the butterfly house is going to close. And to a large extent, what this comes down to is cute little panda bears and white tigers and stuff like that draw the people, draw the money. And invertebrate zoos don't draw the money, take too much funding, and so they're being closed.
They're also planning on opening another exhibit in 20 years or so, which they're on the drawing board for now, and they're planning on adding it back at that time. They were saying their infrastructure currently does not support what they would like to be doing with it now, so they're going to close that and eventually come back with it, hopefully, later on.
Yeah, I can sympathize with the fact that they have funding problems, for sure. That biodiversity, I mean, their museums are really spectacular. So something like a biodiversity museum, I imagine, really would be terrific. The thing that's troubling to me is that they closed it so quickly. So that really, I don't know, that means that the public, individuals who might be opposed to this didn't really get any chance. Even to look at their facts and figures. I think they were saying they would need something like $1 million to keep it running, $1 million a year to keep it running, and something like $5 million to upgrade the facility to what it should be. You know, funding problems everywhere.
Yeah, they should put a Kickstarter up.
There you go.
Or an Indiegogo.
It's
I don't know if like a national zoo is allowed to take donations as opposed to like a private zoo, or I'm not sure.
I'm sure they do.
Uh,
I'm going to guess they definitely do. I wouldn't be surprised if a large chunk of their funding, or at least if they want to put up a new exhibit, I would say there's a good chance some rich guy or some rich guy's estate has said, here's $50 million to this museum to, build something in their name. So I think that probably is a significant part of funding.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the legality of it, but they might be able to.
It's great. We're talking science education. It's great that people, anybody, can get so much information now so easily through the internet. So you can get the information about all these species that doesn't exactly replace the kind of hands-on, the petting zoos and all that other sort of stuff, particularly for the little kids.
I don't know of any invertebrate petting zoos.
Wow, okay. I remember the spider exhibit at the Smithsonian. That was neat. You got the whole tarantulas in your hand and hissing cockroaches and stuff. But I don't remember cuttlefish. I don't think I could hold cuttlefish in my hand.
Ooh, that's scary. I got to.
You hold a cuttlefish, doesn't it need to be in the water?
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. Some octopus can stay out of water for a while. But.
Oh yeah, they can. That's right. I really liked the stingray petting area in Houston's aquarium. It was really cool to feed them.
Yeah, I haven't gone to that yet. There's actually two of them. There's one down in Galveston and there's one downtown. And it's a chain. It's a chain. Yeah, there's a restaurant in them or whatever that's uber expensive.
Yeah, it is.
But yeah, so I haven't gone to that. I don't know if Chris has or not.
Should definitely check it out. The shark exhibit's really cool when you go through it. They're all around you. Some big hammerheads in there.
Yeah, I have a hard. Whenever I see like a zoo type thing, I always think back to Henry Durley Zoo, which is the biggest zoo in the country, and so anything that's like the Baltimore Aquarium is probably the best aquarium I've seen.
That's
I barely remember it because I was like 8 at the time or something. I know they have a similar area, I think. I don't know. All I remember is the Baltimore Aquarium. They have an escalator that goes above the stingray exhibit, like 3 or 4 stories up. It's really unnerving.
I'd really like to see that one they've just built down in, where is it, Alabama? It has the biggest tank.
Alabama has the biggest tank. There's an aquarium in like Japan or something that has this like a whale or something, and it's got this this like plexiglass wall that's like 8 foot thick, and it's like 3 or 4 stories tall.
Yeah, if you go to SeaWorld, you get those big outdoor pens, though. The biggest one, and this is again like 10 years ago, the biggest one, a very good one.
SeaWorld is not something you want to support.
I don't. And that's the other thing.
Let's push gardens.
You want the modern aquariums, the modern zoos, where animals are much more in their natural environment and are not being abused. Like in Connecticut, we have the Mystic Aquarium, and they have those dolphin exhibits, and they,
oh, that's what they have. They have a whale shark in Japan.
Yeah.
Whale shark. Oh wow, a whale shark. That's like 50 feet long.
Yeah. Hold on, I'm trying to find a good photo of it.
Well, the whale sharks swim along very slowly. They're filter feeders.
Right.
They're very active. They're big.
Share my screen. Let's see here.
The one in Boston, you can walk around it, and you just walk around up, and I think it's 3 or 4 stories high, and you can walk around it at different levels. They have different kinds of fish, and including sharks and things.
All right, yeah. So look at how big this. It's like this is a person.
That looks inside.
It is inside.
What?
That's what I'm saying.
No.
Yes. Let's see. Hold on. This is
a whale shark inside an aquarium.
This is in Dubai. Oh, this is the like top 10 biggest aquariums. So the first one is the Georgia Aquarium. I would not have thought in Atlanta. There's 100,000 marine creatures. Then there's the Dubai Aquarium. I mean, everything's big in Dubai.
We got $1 gazillion to spend.
There's a deep aquarium, Monterey Bay Aquarium.
That's a very cool aquarium.
Haven't
And
been
again,
there.
what you see, like the penguin exhibits and things, everything's in a very natural environment.
The oceanographic. I don't know where this is at. It looks fake. The Okinawa Kurami Aquarium. This is the one I was thinking of. It opened in 2002. I saw a Discovery show about it.
I was stationed in Okinawa, Japan in 1964. They didn't have any museum then.
2002. It opened in 2002. They have 2 whale sharks and this wall of like plexiglass or whatever that's like 2 or 3 stories tall, and it's like as long as a football field or some crap.
That is unbelievable.
And
those are probably...
I'm disappointed that my zoo's not on here, but I don't know that it's the biggest, but it is a pretty good aquarium.
Yeah. And some, for instance, out in San Francisco, you've got Blair's Aquarium. That's got an outreach program. So some aquariums are doing very well. Some zoos are doing pretty well, and some are not doing so much, and some should be closed. Absolutely, like SeaWorld.
That one in Georgia lets you swim with the whale sharks.
That'd be cool.
There's some zoo somewhere that
For $34.
gigantic alligator or crocodile or something, and you can like, there's like a plexiglass thing or whatever. You can
Australia.
do this right next to it. Yeah.
Saltwater crocs in Australia can get up to 29, 30 feet. I don't know if they ever go over there. 30 feet. A 30-foot croc that weighs probably a couple of tons. That's a big croc.
Yeah. Apparently, alligators, you can't tell how old they are by how big they are. They get bigger based on how much they eat.
Mm-hmm.
So you could have a really old alligator that's only like 8 foot long. But you could have a younger one that's had a big food source and could be like 20 feet long.
I wonder why that is.
Is Chris with us? Hello, Chris, because I've got some
He's here,
space
but
stuff.
he's muted. Oh, there's Chris.
I'm here.
Hello, Chris. Well, we've got some space stuff, and now we got somebody who may even know something about space and can help us.
He's a nuclear engineer, not an astrophysicist.
He's a scientist, that's all I know.
No. I don't know. Last time I talked to him, Chris said, "No, I'm definitely an engineer, not a scientist."
Not a scientist? Okay, he's an engineer. Alright, let me put this in the chat area for Chris. Our story number 3. Now, the more I read about black holes, the more I get confused, which is probably not all that easy.
Pretty common reaction.
And in this case, we have an international team of astronomers using data from NASA and the European Space Agency. They discovered an unexpected behavior from the supermassive black hole at the heart of galaxy NGC 5548, and it's located 244.6 million light years from Earth. This behavior may provide new insight into how supermassive black holes interact with their host galaxy. Immediately after NASA's Hubble Space Telescope observed NGC 5548, this international team discovered unexpected features in the data that detected a stream of gas flowing rapidly outward from the galaxy's supermassive black hole, blocking 90% of its emitted X-rays. The data represents dramatic changes since the last observation with Hubble in 2011. This is Jared Chris, Space Telescope Science Institute. I saw signatures of much colder gas than was present before, indicating the wind had cooled down to a significant decrease in X-ray radiation from the galaxy's nucleus. The discovery was made during an intensive observation campaign that also included NASA Swift spacecraft, the Nuclear Spectroscopic Telescope Array, and Chandra X-ray Observatory. After combining and analyzing data from all sources, the team was able to put together the pieces of the puzzle. Supermassive black holes and the nuclei of active galaxies, such as NGC 5548, expel large amounts of matter through powerful winds of ionized gas. For instance, the persistent wind of NGC 554 reaches velocities exceeding 621 miles a second. But now a new wind has arisen much stronger and faster. The new winds reach speeds of up to 3,107 miles per second, which is closer to the nucleus than the persistent wind. The new gas outflow blocks 90% of the low energy X-rays that come from very close to the black hole, and it obscures up to a third of the region that emits the ultraviolet radiation at a few light days distance from the black hole. The newly discovered gas stream, NGC 5548, provides the first direct observation of a shielding process that accelerates the powerful gas streams or winds to high speeds. These winds only occur if their starting point is shielded from X-rays. It appears that shielding in NGC 554 has been going on for at least 3 years, but just recently began crossing their line of sight. There are other galaxies with similar streams of gas flowing outward from the direction of its center black hole. We've never before found evidence that the stream of gas changed its position as dramatically as this one has. Okay, black holes. First thing I read was nothing gets out of a black hole. And now it says supermassive
the definition
hole.
is light under no other external forces that encounters a black hole won't be able to escape. But there is a chance that there's a more localized force that's stronger than gravity, that your electromagnetic forces sometimes may outpower the gigantic gravitational force. So, theoretically, if the black hole was made of, perfect, non-charged particles, that the gravity would overwhelm it. But there's a lot of stuff happening inside the black hole that causes other things to happen, like the emission of the X-rays. So this notion that something that goes
Yep, you dropped
is
off.
only true if you only look at gravity. Can you hear me?
Right, radiation escapes.
Yeah, we got you now.
I think a while back, Stephen Hawking put out something that black holes, in the sense that holes that nothing come out of don't exist, that in fact everything that enters a black hole will eventually come back out as we approach the time is equal to infinity. They call it the Hawking radiation.
Right. Yeah, I know about Hawking radiation.
Does this have anything to do with something like Hawking radiation? Is this something completely different?
I think it does have similar ideas, that it's coming from inside the black hole and stuff that has entered the black hole gets out. But as far as the theoretical aspects of it, I'm not entirely sure. But my best understanding of what's happening is that there's probably a very strong electromagnetic force somewhere inside that is, sending out this gas, despite the enormous influence of the gravity in the region. we don't really know what goes on inside of the black hole. We can only see its horizon.
I guess that's well through.
So what you're really saying is, provided a sufficient enough power source, there could be a vessel that could study a black hole and not be sucked in.
I think I would believe that would be true, or that may be true that if you get sucked in, you may be able to get back out. So it.
I think you would. I don't know if that's true once you go past the the virtual event horizon.
Well, it is true that you can at least get atoms out. Now there's, you probably would be squashed and destroyed, but at some point, either the energy or, as we were seeing, the plasma jets would get out of the black hole. So I guess from the knowledge we've gained now, we can see that something that enters a black hole may be able to come out again, but I doubt any human could survive it. You know, there'd be no spaceship. The spaceship would probably get smashed. But imagine, you know, if you get to a neutron star, right? On a neutron star, the gravity is so dense, or the gravity is so powerful that it basically makes a giant atom. So the neutron star is a degenerate neutron. You know, you have just so many neutrons in the star that the force of gravity has actually pulled the electrons into the protons and turned everything into a giant neutron star, which has quite a density. But theoretically, you could fly to the surface and mine a little bit off and fly away. And I think that would be a similar case for a black hole. But you know, the fact is that you can't see anything coming directly out, that you can only see what is able to, you know, black holes don't really let light escape except under extraordinary circumstances of whatever's happening inside the black hole that we really can't see. So you could theoretically fly to one, and if you were able to resist the intense gravitational forces squishing you, grab something and fly out. If you had, like you were saying, something that is maybe a local force, like a electromagnetic force, or a something that can let you get out, that would be probably on the black hole itself.
Gravity is one of the weaker forces, so another force should be able to overcome it, given enough energy.
Basically. That's my interpretation. I'm not, again, a theoretical physicist, but if something's coming out of the black hole, fundamentally that means that there's something more powerful than the gravity force that's pushing it away.
Or pulling it in.
Or pull it in, yeah.
That makes sense.
I guess as we improve our technology, we can detect what's happening around the black hole. Maybe even we can't see what inside it necessarily. We can detect what's leaving it, make better observations. And even if we can't get inside a black hole, if we can get close to one, we're not, I guess, not inside its gravity well.
In the grand scheme of things, we're pretty close to this black hole.
We're going to have to invite Stephen Hawking to the next TWIS.
I really
Actually, that's another show, but yeah. I'm sure they wouldn't mind.
I like thinking about white holes. Have we?
Hawking was just on at this comedian's show. I forget his name. He used to be on The Daily Show. Now he's on HBO.
Jon Stewart?
No, not Jon Stewart. He used to be on The Daily Show. He was one of the side guys.
Right.
He did the internet comment for the FCC thing like a month ago. James something, I don't know. He's like British or Aussie or something, or New Zealand.
Another thought that comes to my mind of perhaps the black hole might be not uniform, such that it like maybe there's like a lot of mass on one side and a little bit of mass on the other, and it's such that it leaves a little bit of an opening for something to come out. That again, I guess traveling the speed of light, you can't like as a photon traveling the speed of light, you can't technically beat the black hole. But maybe if there was some just weird things happening on the inside of the black hole, there would be a special case where you could get out.
I think that would only happen when it was feeding. Unless black holes spin at a significant, John Oliver, spin at a significant rate that they squish, like the Earth and the Moon type of thing. I don't even know if the Sun does that. The Earth's not really a sphere. It's a any planetary, any celestial body next to any other celestial body will distort to an extent based on the other's gravity.
A little bit. In space, the Earth spins, so we actually are we're an ellipsoid in that we're not a perfect sphere. And when you have a satellite circling the planet, you have to take that into account a little bit as an adjustment to assuming this Earth is a perfect sphere.
I heard recently someone was talking about how just having an artificial satellite orbit a body, you can map its gravitational field based on certain instruments on the satellite, just by how much it's getting pulled. Singularity. Yeah, we should start calling them singularities and not black holes.
Yeah.
I was actually just going to suggest that. I want to find a white hole.
Yeah, that's what I was actually looking for. That's what I'm really interested in.
I like to think they're in a parallel universe. Or something. But I don't know if there's any math to say that. Maths, I guess, would be the proper term.
We have that New Horizons spacecraft going out towards...
Next year we'll see Pluto. Up close
and beyond, out to the Kuiper Belt, as I understand it. That's the kind of thing we'll be able to make much better observations and find out tons of stuff. Find out everything we thought we knew 5 years ago is completely wrong. And we have to write all new textbooks.
I'm waiting for Pluto to be bigger than we think it is.
I was just reading something that they expect there to be 2 more planets, Pluto or bigger, further out from Pluto's orbit that we haven't found yet.
Those would be called Plutoids. They're not planets, they're dwarf planets.
Yeah.
Although technically, apparently, Pluto is a comet, even though it has moons. I think Charon actually has moons. Pluto has 4 things orbiting it, and I'm not sure if any orbit Charon. I want to find a moon that has moons. There's got to be one in this solar system of like something. Like there's got to be like an asteroid orbiting a moon or something.
It's hard to do that just because if you have 2 planets that interact, so if you have
I see where you're going.
Earth, Jupiter is far enough away from Earth that it's still a 2-body problem because Jupiter has such a small effect on the Earth compared to the Sun. So anytime you have an object orbiting something that is much larger gravitational than anything else, you have stability. But when you're around a planet like Jupiter and you're already a moon of Jupiter, that means Jupiter is having a large effect on you, and it's harder to orbit, harder to have a stable orbit because, between the moon being so close and Jupiter being fairly close, they're going to push you away or pull you forward until you crash into one place or another.
I don't know if I'd be able to find the link, but one of the very first things I shared on Google Plus was this GIF of of the orbit of Jupiter and the asteroid belt, and how when Jupiter orbits the Sun, it pulls this cloud of asteroids with it, as well as pushing asteroids out of the way.
Yeah.
There's like this triangle of asteroids that shows up when it's the whole thing's orbiting.
So they have something called the interplanetary superhighway that theoretically, if you put a spacecraft in space, it gets pulled by all the planets, especially Jupiter. And sometimes you can take advantage of that effect and actually be propelled throughout the solar system without having any propellant, just by the gravity of Jupiter. And when you look at the asteroids in the asteroid belt, they're actually discrete. There's areas where there's no asteroids, and then there's areas where there's large groups of asteroids. And that's because of this gravitational effect of Jupiter that's pulling groups back and forth, and it tends to group things. So, yeah, there's a lot of interesting gravity things that happen with planets and orbiting things, but they're very long term. So if you don't mind taking a few thousand years to go somewhere in the solar system, you could do it for free, or with just a small amount of propellant with Jupiter's help, or you can do it very quickly with something else. I'll have to send you some of the TED Talks on that, but
I like how Jupiter's called, the vacuum of our solar system. It protects us.
Yeah, that is one of the I've heard that before, that Jupiter protects us by forming that asteroid belt.
I wonder if there was a quick way to get to the first post on my stream.
So Ed, I have something that I sent in the chat, I think the talk chat, that's Stephen Hawking's new theory offers black hole escape from New Scientist, that you might be interested in.
I got it on my phone, but it didn't go in the Hangout.
Oh, it didn't?
You have to. I don't know if there's a chat room you can see in the Hangout that you can post to.
Part of my problem is I'm using my iPad, so I'm...
Yeah, it's like two separate apps is the problem, I think.
Swipe up, you can get to the chat.
What I remember about, there was I think a theoretical finding of some sort, and it had to do with information packets, as I recall. That was a term, information packets, getting out of a black hole.
There you go. I think I sent that directly to you, Ed. So.
Where are you sending it?
That should pop up on one of your devices somewhere.
You're sending it to this Hangout or to me personally?
I think this is to you personally, and I also have a chat in whatever my Google Hangout section. I'm not sure.
I'm posting your link in the comments section.
All right.
All right, there we. Okay, now I see where you are. January. I think I read this. I heard about it. I know it was discussed on the This Week in Science podcast, and it was strictly this is strictly speculation, if I remember correctly, not based on any evidence. It's just his ideas, which are generally pretty good ideas. And Amy is here. Amy has joined us in the chat area. Amy sent me to asteroids.
Yeah, that's the one I was
Cool
looking for.
video.
That's the exact post I was looking for. Thanks, Amy.
Ha! Very cool looking video. Graphic.
Here, let me.
Hildas. Trojans and Hildas.
All right, I'm sharing it now. So we got Jupiter over on the right side. Is that? I'm guessing this is the sun in the center. I assume. Then we have like these two like. I guess what they're Trojans and Hildas or something. Hildas don't form a true asteroid family because they aren't fragments of a single planet or parent object. Instead, they're a dynamical family. They're defined by having similar orbits. Any Hilda orbit has a eccentricity of less than 0.3 and inclination less than 20 degrees, and oops, I just got thinking. Okay. And a semi-major axis between 3.7 AU and 4.2 AU. Remember, the semi-major axis is an ellipse, is half the distance between the farthest points.
And then
What did... Escaping information ignites firewall, which can be reconciled with general relativity. Erika DeBenedictis. That's a tough name.
she has a TED Talk on that planetary superhighway and Jupiter's effects on that.
Yeah, thanks for the link, Patrick. I have bookmarked it.
So let's see here. Where were we? I guess we actually talked about all of the stories. Well, no, we skipped like 6.
We didn't talk about the storm.
What was that? I couldn't. You're breaking up.
We didn't check. We didn't talk about the first story about the swarms revealing.
You guys ready to move on to another story? I wasn't sure when you were finished talking.
Magnetism.
Well, everyone kind of went silent, so.
Sometimes that means you guys are just thinking. Well, the next thing we can go on, actually, since Amy is here, Amy posted her most recent article in Space Flight Insider. Let me give you guys the link to it. And I will have to apologize to Amy because I am editing out a couple of paragraphs because it's a little bit too long for me to read. What we're talking about is the New Horizons mission to Pluto and the Kuiper Belt. The Hubble Space Telescope Time Allocation Committee. Gotta have committees! And after careful analysis, have recommended the use of the Hubble Space Telescope to help search for potential targets in NASA's New Horizons mission to Pluto and the Kuiper Belt. Currently, the spacecraft is currently on the way through the outer solar system with a planned flyby of Pluto in 2015. And what I like here is you've got this craft. It's out there. It's way out there in space. And yet they're able to communicate with it. They're able to target it from one direction into another. Hubble will search a small section of the sky beyond Pluto in order to locate any Kuiper Belt objects for the spacecraft to visit after its encounter with Pluto. The Kuiper Belt is an enormous debris field packed with remains from the solar system early formation for 4.6 billion years ago. Since the Kuiper Belt is so far from the Sun, a Kuiper Belt object has never been seen in detail. I'm pleased that our science peer review process arrived at a consensus, yay, a consensus, as to how to effectively use Hubble's unique capabilities to support the science goals of the New Horizons mission. And that was Matt Mountain, director of the Space Telescope Institute. Matt Mountain. That's a real name for you, a real science name. Preliminary analysis of Hubble data will help scientists to determine if a Kuiper Belt search is necessary. Hubble will scan the sky near the constellation Sagittarius in hopes of identifying any potential Kuiper Belt objects. In order to distinguish a Kuiper Belt from the stars within Sagittarius, Hubble will move at the rate that Kuiper Belt objects are predicted to move in relation to background stars. This technique will produce images with the stars appearing as stellar trails, while any Kuiper Belt object present will appear as pinpoints. Scientists will be looking for at least 2 Kuiper Belt objects of a certain brightness in order to statistically prove that Hubble is capable of finding targets for New Horizons. If Hubble proves to be effective, if the Hubble test proves to be effective, then additional observation time will be allotted for more scans. Yes, we want more scans. The New Horizons mission, I'm skipping ahead here, the New Horizons missions was launched in 2006 from Cape Canaveral. Even before its launch, the mission was receiving support from Hubble. With the help of Hubble, astronomers discovered Pluto has a binary companion. That's the first time we knew about our friend Karen. And also discovered 4 small moons. Hubble was also able to map Pluto's surface in detail and helping astronomers plan out New Horizons up-close photo ops. Skipping ahead a bit, the planned search for a suitable target for New Horizons further demonstrate how Hubble is effectively being used to support humankind's initial reconnaissance of the solar system, said Mountain. Likewise, it is also a preview of how the powerful capabilities of the upcoming James Webb Space Telescope will further boost planetary science. We are excited by the potential of both observations for ongoing solar system exploration and discovery. The New Horizons mission is managed by the Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Lab. Spacecraft is equipped with minor cameras, radio science experiments, both UV and infrared spectrometers, and space plasma experiments. Its goal is to map the surface conditions and temperatures of both Pluto and Charon, and as well as the dual's geology and atmosphere. The craft is equipped with 8-foot, 2.1-meter dish antenna in order to communicate with us here on Earth over a distance of 4.7 billion, I say billion, miles. And I added a little bit of information on time lags that I found interesting. So from Earth to Pluto, the time lag would be 5 hours. Earth to Mars is 3 to 21 minutes, Earth to Jupiter 33 to 53 minutes, and Earth to Pluto 5 hours. Earth to the nearest star 9.5 million kilometers, 4 years.
So are they looking to see if there are any potential collisions with New Horizons? Because I doubt they could scan the entire Kuiper belt. You know, they're looking specifically in the region of Pluto as New Horizons goes forward. And my guess is that they're looking for any debris fields, and they're going to move the New Horizons spacecraft accordingly if they see anything in the way. Otherwise, they kind of left that out of that article. I don't know. You know, it can't scan the entire Kuiper belt from just looking at Pluto.
My understanding is the Kuiper belt is sufficiently less dense than the asteroid belt, so it's like very minimal that you'd be able to actually see or find anything out there.
I've heard that you know, they saw Sharon, and when they launched New Horizons, they actually didn't know about the other moon companions of Pluto. So I've heard that they were then concerned because it's going to do a quick flyby, and they were concerned that if they flew too close to Pluto, or if they flew through what we might think of as almost like a dust ring or something like that, that it would be kind of a bad idea. So they were trying to see how close to Pluto they should fly New Horizons. You know, it's just going to fly past. Once it flies past Pluto, it's going to continue sailing and eventually catch up with Voyager.
It should eventually surpass Voyager, shouldn't it?
Well, Voyager is much further out right now because it was launched in 1970, but someday I think New Horizons is traveling a bit faster than Voyager, and someday it should surpass it.
I mean, they put it on our fastest rocket, so it should be going fast, unless it had like a braking maneuver once it went past Neptune or something. I don't know.
I don't think it's had any assists. I think it just went straight for Pluto from Earth.
It doesn't have like an ion engine or anything on it. It's just pure velocity, right? Or kinetic or whatever.
I think they have some way of slightly controlling it a little bit with maybe a little gas thruster on it. But I think, let's see, so the rendezvous is happening, I think, in less than a year. Or the flyby of Pluto is happening in less than a year.
Yeah, 2015. I don't know when in 2015.
So that'll be kind of cool to see Pluto up close for the first time. All we have is kind of it's this spot in the sky that we can kind of see. And soon we'll
we have some like 3-pixel images of it or something.
Yeah.
Fuzzy.
Very small.
You can see.
Last week there was an article, there was some study talking about they think there may be some cracks on the surface. That there are cracks on the surface. Obviously it might give you a glimpse into the planet and maybe shows that there could have been water inside in Pluto at some point in the past. What about this James Webb telescope?
It's 30 years in the making.
It's a little over budget and a fair bit. Well, a fair bit over budget and a fair bit over time. But it's been seen through, and it looks like it is going to launch. Or at least all the political conditions are correct. And I've heard numbers like 2018 for it. And it's supposed to be basically Hubble's successor. That will be much better than Hubble.
Oh, there you go. Who knows what that
It's got a mirror that's like 9 times the size or something. or 35. I don't know. I know it will eventually be at Johnson, and I maybe get to be able to get a peek at it. Probably not, but that should be at Johnson for final vacuum testing. Although it seems like they're doing that right now at Marshall, so I don't know. I know that they had to completely re-rig the vacuum chamber building at Johnson to get it in there, so it'd be stupid if they never actually used it there.
Let's see.
So this telescope is going to be launched in 2018.
Let's see. Launch vehicle, 5 years.
As of right now, I think it is.
Yeah, as of right now.
But there was I don't know if you saw or heard anything about it, but they did kind of break ground on a new ground-based telescope that's going to be really cool.
Yeah, in Chile, is it?
Yep, Chile. But that one probably won't be finished till like 2024.
So optics is a field that is constantly getting better. There's all kinds of methods now for getting better resolution pictures from smaller mirrors and using actually, there's something called a star shade that's being worked on right now.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, it has a special pattern that it's basically a flat piece with a special pattern built in the piece such that the interference and of light as it comes over this will then hit a telescopic lens and have kind of a pretty big multiplier effect on how many pixels it can see.
I thought that was completely different. My understanding of the star shade was that you'd be able to see the planets orbiting a star without having the light of the star blank out the planets.
That's like the sphere instrument.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that has something to do with the interference patterns on the light. So yeah, I would agree with you.
So.
All right.
Did you hear about the SpaceX launch today?
Was it 6 satellites at once or 6 over time?
It was going to be 6 satellites at once, but it scrubbed yesterday due to a decrease in pressure, I think, in the second stage. And so they were going to try to launch today, but the weather didn't permit, but they weren't going to webcast it. SpaceX issued like a statement saying that their launches have become so routine that they don't need to broadcast them for people to watch.
Okie dokie.
Yeah.
That's also disappointing because all the scrubs.
You know what they could do? I mean, the countdown business where you see a picture of the spacecraft. It's up there, and they're counting down T-minus 40 minutes. I mean, that can be a tad boring just to watch it. But if they could, you know, if they take that kind of a telecast, punch it up with people talking about it, and then maybe around T-minus 10, start the countdown.
Well, see, that's what they had that on Friday. They had mixed in some good, you know, facts and different things about the rocket and the mission. But I guess somewhere between Friday and Saturday, it became too routine to broadcast.
They probably just had some scheduling conflicts with something else. I don't know.
I don't know. There were some pretty funny hashtags on Twitter, though, about it.
If anyone's interested, there's a site called spacexstats.com that you can go to, and they have all of the projected flights and when things are going and what they're carrying. The Falcon 9 will fly 6 Orbcomm G2 satellites into low Earth orbit as part of a multi-mission contract for the corporation.
Yeah, that's the one that's supposed to go up, but I think it's been scrubbed about 8 different times. due to various issues.
Yeah, I'd heard the same thing about the weather being a problem, or at least an expected problem.
I like to see some rockets that don't have weather problems ever. Like, can they build one that can launch under any conditions? Surely this is possible. Planes fly in almost any weather.
But I mean, I figured weather-wise that today was going to be a really crappy day for it, just based on, the predictions. And I'm actually surprised that yesterday the weather was as nice as it was out there.
So wait, what is this website AJ has up?
It's the one Chris mentioned, spacefacts.com.
Okay.
I love how they have the countdown for 0 SpaceX astronauts.
But today's supposed launch was like the first time since, I guess, like the Cold War era that nobody was going to broadcast a launch. So people were having...
Yeah, NASA broadcasts the most mundane launches.
Right. I guess it kind of like gave people an indication that maybe SpaceX had something that they didn't want people to know about during the launch, or, people always assume those types of things.
Yeah.
Thanks for the link, AJ.
Yeah.
They do have a lot of launches coming up. They have one on 22nd of June, which is supposedly tomorrow. Well, no, it is tomorrow, but whether or not it launches. Mid-July, July, August, November, another one in November, another one in November, and one in early 2015. So I didn't know they had so many launches already.
Well, because when we were at the social, didn't they say, AJ, that there was supposed to be like, was it the first Falcon Heavy at the beginning of next quarter? Next year, the first quarter?
I didn't think it was that soon.
The Falcon Heavy was supposed to be by the end of 2014, but about maybe 5 months ago, they said that it wouldn't be until 2015.
That's what I thought.
Well, yeah, they're working on the Falcon Heavy. They have parts of it constructed, and they're supposed to launch in sometime in 2015.
Yeah, aren't they going to use that for the Dragon 2?
Huh?
Does the Dragon 2 go on the Falcon Heavy? I thought it was for Falcon 9.
I don't know.
I think it's for the Falcon 9.
Okay.
Yeah, because the Dragon 1 launched on Falcon 9.
Yeah.
Okay. Falcon Heavy test flight is early 2015. Cape Canaveral.
So if the Falcon Heavy does well, I see the SLS having a lot more troubles in the future.
Oh, the SLS is never going to launch.
Oh, sure it will.
No,
I hope it launches, but I'll just say that when you have the Falcon Heavy is 50 tons, and the SLS can do somewhere around 120 tons, depending on its configuration and how you launch it. But they were saying economically it'll be in the couple billion per launch.
Right.
Whereas the Falcon Heavy is going to be, they said 500 million or less per launch. I think it's probably a bit lower than that, so how do you justify something that in 2 launches can carry as much as something that costs 10 times what it costs? Something like that. So we'll see what happens in the future, but if the Falcon Heavy does well, it may end up making it to where NASA doesn't need to lead the way with the heavy launch vehicle, because there already will be a heavy launch vehicle out commercially. A lot of people tell me that NASA should lead the way and then commercial industry follow, but I'm perfectly happy if commercial industry is leading the way as well. As long as someone's doing something, that's what I care about.
The Falcon Heavy can lift 53 metric tons, which is 117,000 pounds.
I'm surprised the cost isn't like 3 times as much.
As what?
Well, the Falcon 9 is 61 million, and the Falcon Heavy is 85 million.
To
Interesting.
launch or the cost of the vehicle?
Standard payment plan.
Where's this at?
Check the. It's under capabilities on the SpaceX site. There's the link.
Yeah, wow, 85 million. If they match that, then that really makes the SLS look unattractive.
I wonder if I'd qualify for that payment plan.
What is the 6.4 MT to GTO? 6.4 million what? What's the T?
Maybe that's a built to order.
What's GTO?
I don't know.
Oh,
see.
geosynchronous transfer orbit.
Uh-huh.
I thought it was like something geo. Up to 6.4 MT to million. Might not even be million. I don't know what that means. MT.
Million trillion?
No. Million terawatts. That's a big number. Is there a glossary?
$85 million a launch? Going to cost $85 million every time they launch that vehicle?
Well, that's without reclaiming the rockets at the end.
If they can
Each one of
deliver
the-
on that
even the-
price, it's crazy. What they
It's supposed once they're able to return the rocket, it's supposed to take the launch cost down to like a couple million. Because it's all in building the rocket. The fuel's cheap.
The
Relatively
MT is
speaking.
metric tons.
Oh yeah, that's probably it.
Yeah.
Up to 6.4 metric tons to June. Okay, I get it.
Okay, so that $85 million is for the vehicle itself?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. It's not $85 million every time they want to launch it.
Oh
Well, I
well,
heard-
at the moment they
Well,
have to rebuild a rocket every
You're
time.
right.
But just to give you perspective, every time the shuttle launches,
Didn't think about that.
Sorry, you went quiet there. What'd you
metric
say?
tons. I was saying the shuttle was $1 billion.
Yeah, you're still cutting in and out.
I heard Elon speaking recently, and he wanted to recover all the boosters to make it more affordable.
I guess just one more time to try. The shuttle was $1 billion every launch, and it was about 24 metric tons, so half the size for about 10 times the price. Yeah. So there's a factor of 20 in savings with a Falcon Heavy if they get it working.
So if it can carry 53 metric tons to orbit, how far into orbit? If it can only get 6.4 to geosynchronous orbit, or geo transition. What was it?
It's probably geo if there's that much of a difference. But
Geosynchronous transfer orbit can only get up to 6.4 metric tons. But the Falcon 9 can get 4.8 metric tons to geosynchronous transfer orbit.
You know, $85 million for one vehicle, that's not that much. I mean, I remember that story about the new aircraft carrier they built, or the new destroyer, I think it was. That was like $7 billion per ship.
Yeah, but that's totally different.
$7 billion per ship? And
For
we're
an
talking
aircraft
85
carrier?
million here? That's peanuts
No.
comparison.
An aircraft carrier doesn't go to orbit. It's supposed to last more than once. You're supposed to continually use that. It has habitation on it. It has a power plant. It has a small city in one of those things. I understand that being 7 billion.
This is a destroyer.
Oh, it's a
Yeah,
destroyer.
It's a
Well,
destroyer,
still,
but anyway, it's a military vehicle. But here, you can build. I mean, you're going to use this heavy to launch several scientific experiments. So you're looking at scientific experiments.
well, it's not just scientific experience, but it's commercial satellites, telecommunication satellites, etc.
Okay, so there's your value. There's your value. Let's see, you have to. I don't know how many of them you're going to have to build eventually, but for the cost of one destroyer, which is $7 billion, you can build a heck of a lot of these heavy vehicles, these heavy top heavy, whatever the heck they're called.
Falcon Heavies.
Falcon Heavies. I'm just a scientist. I'm just thinking like a scientist. So,
Yeah.
man, I mean, that's such a difference in ratio. I don't know.
Well, basically, it's a drop by about a factor of 10 in price from what
Right.
our old capabilities are. And if they get reusability working, it'll be a drop by maybe 20 to 100 times, depending. So,
Right.
I mean, the ultimate thing is, you know, generally as a rule, I've always heard that it's about $10,000 per pound into orbit right now.
Yeah.
With the Falcon Heavy, I've heard that it will drive that price down to about $1,000 a pound. And if they get reusability working, it'll probably drop it down to maybe a couple $100 a pound. So, you know, ultimately we're getting towards a space economy.
I just learned something this week, and I was now this is I'm guessing. So okay, I was fixing this lady's computer that was in charge of all the NASA swag, and so I got a few patches and whatnot. But besides that, so they send like bundles of patches and flags on the rockets up to the ISS, and then they just sit there in the capsule until it comes back, because they're used as like promotion type stuff or like awards and whatnot to say this was flown on this such mission. And when I was hearing about her trying to secure a room on one of the flights, I kept thinking to myself, doesn't it cost 10 grand per pound to get something to orbit? But now that I think about it, they're using the same amount of fuel every launch. And so there's extra room if they're not launching their max payload or whatever. So it's not necessarily it's always 10,000 per pound. They might be underweight, in which case it would cost more if you're not utilizing all that space.
Yeah.
Are you talking about Sarah Brightman?
No.
Oh.
I don't know if I should. Why would it be Sarah Brightman? Is she?
I don't know. I really wasn't paying attention, and there was an article that was sorry, I was reading something. There was an article that was out this week with Space Adventures and like Virgin Galactic, where she's paying $54 million for a ride on the Soyuz.
Oh,
and I
no,
know that she was at Johnson like probably like a month ago.
No, I was talking about how they send swag up to the ISS just for to say it's been flown in space, and how you would think it would cost 10 grand per pound of that swag to get to the ISS, and it'd be like a waste of money. But no, in actuality, they're using the same amount of fuel every time they launch something. And so it's just they need to fill up the space, otherwise it's a waste.
Yeah, that
there
makes
was
sense.
a movie many years ago about burials. This guy ran a pet burial service. In the end, what they did is I forget what he got paid. They had a general's body, and they were launching that into space. So there's a good way. There's a way to raise some money. You know, retired.
I don't know how
generals,
that all
retired
tied
movie
together,
stars
frankly.
get their bodies in space.
Well, you heard about Scotty's
Space
ashes,
Bears?
right? You know Scotty's ashes?
Yeah.
So SpaceX on one of their original Falcon 1s was going to launch Scotty's ashes into space. But unfortunately, that was one of their first 3 vehicles, and it blew up instead of launching his ashes.
Aww.
Yeah. They got their next launch working, but...
I don't think he would have had a problem with that.
I think he wanted it, or something like that, or his family wanted it at least.
Didn't
I don't
they
know,
keep
sorry.
launching rockets to space?
Wait, SpaceX had a thing that blew up on the launch pad?
Their first 3 Falcon 1s back in 2007 and 8, or maybe it was 6 and 7, they blew up. Well, the first one went up and came right back down. It was a complete loss. The second one had some other issue. Then the third one had this issue where when they separated the second stage, the second stage was still slightly burning, so it came up and hit the first stage and made the whole thing crash. So, and I think actually the second...
Did they have any commercial payloads on these things?
Yeah, they were high-risk commercial payloads that they told the customers, hey, like, just know there's a pretty big chance this is going to fail.
I'm sure they have insurance.
Well, I mean, these were unimportant. They weren't like Orcom satellites or anything. They were like kind of what can you sell with a 50% chance of failure, right? You know,
Right. Yeah.
going in like these weren't expected to succeed. And in fact, on his 4th flight, Elon Musk said that he would go over his 100 million mark if it didn't succeed, he would run out of money and he would quit SpaceX altogether. But on the 4th launch of the Falcon 1, it succeeded.
Yeah, I remember hearing that.
They continued. So, yeah, it was a big deal because he was literally 1 launch away from just quitting SpaceX.
Yeah. He has 3 companies right now.
Yeah.
Solar City, which is building a solar gigafactory in New York. Tesla, which is building a gigafactory in Arizona.
They don't know yet. They're still out in debates with the different places, but...
Yeah, so there'll be a battery gigafactory, a solar gigafactory, and SpaceX. They don't have a gigafactory.
Yeah, well, they have a rocket, maybe not gigafactory yet, but it's a pretty good rocket factory.
Yeah. I'm waiting for the rocket gigafactory. Then we'll know we're really on track to go. And then there'll be a monopoly because they'll own the entire space industry and they'll have to get broken up.
Yeah. So I had sent an article over that actually talks about Virgin Galactic. I don't know if anyone can actually forward that to the actual chat so everyone can see that.
Yeah, hold on 1 second. I think I saw it.
Yeah. So the premise is, I believe that in 10 years, Verizon is going to go boom. Verizon and any commercial landline copper fiber optic company, they're just going to be out of business because Google is going to send up a fleet of very small satellites and very small drones to broadcast networks over the entire globe. So this is an article from Parabolic Arc that Virgin Galactic.
Website name.
Yeah, Virgin Galactic has their launcher. Their Spaceship 2 is, or I mean not Spaceship, their White Knight 2. And White Knight 2 typically carries Spaceship 2, but they've also been doing work on carrying a small rocket to launch very small satellites into orbit for cheap. So I believe, you know, there's kind of a deal, an equity deal that Google may want to buy part of Virgin Galactic so they can launch these very small satellites. And they recently bought a company. I'm trying to remember the name of the company. It's probably in the article. But Google very recent, I think it was Skybox was the name of it. And Skybox was developing a ultra low Earth orbit, so not a very long-lived
Skybox Imaging.
Yeah. So they were developing a very small satellite that can basically broadcast internet to the ground. And they would have to continually launch these. One of the problems with satellites is if you're at GEO, if you're in a long-lived orbit, your satellite is actually so far away from Earth that there's a pretty big delay. There'd be too much latency. But if you can have your satellite in a low orbit, you look at the speed of light and how far away it is, you can actually have a very low latency. So they're pushing, I think, a drone network. A while back, Facebook and Google had both acquired solar-powered drone companies to basically have internet via drone. But Google's definitely taken a step further with buying the Skybox, and I think that's a pretty big development in the future. So if you have any stock in Verizon or Comcast, just warning you, it's probably those companies with their business models can't last if Google gets a way better network that is just everywhere, ubiquitous because of their coverage.
Oh, I can't wait until both of those companies go out of business. Not Google per se.
Until they fly over China and China tries to shoot them down.
We're going to have a hard time because they're very small satellites, but who knows?
Yeah.
I got one story I wanted to cover, and then you guys can tell me how much I should worry about. We're talking about the weakening Earth's magnetic field.
Yeah.
Here's an observation. This is the European Space Agency's 3-satellite swarm constellation. Reveals the most recent changes in the magnetic field that protects our planet. And the swarm is providing unprecedented insight into the complex working of the Earth's magnetic field. Measurements made over the past 6 months confirm the onward general trend of the field's weakening, with the most dramatic declines over the Western Hemisphere. But in other areas, such as the southern Indian Ocean, the magnetic field has strengthened since January. The latest measurements also confirm the movement of the magnetic field north towards Siberia. Changes are based on the magnetic signals steaming from the Earth's core. Over the coming months, scientists will analyze the data to unravel the magnetic contributions from other sources, the mantle, crust, oceans, ionosphere, and magnetosphere. This will provide new insight. Now, I read in another article, when they say weakening magnetic field, at this rate, they're talking about the Earth's magnetic field disappearing in 5,000 years, 4,000 to 5,000 years, maybe sooner. So I went to physio.org. This is another article, and it said 41,000 years ago, the Earth's magnetic field faded and practically disappeared, leaving our planet unprotected from the bombardment of cosmic rays. Evidence for this event has been found in ocean sediment cores. The researchers measured variations in the concentrations of beryllium-10, a radioactive isotope produced by the action of cosmic rays on oxygen and nitrogen atoms in the atmosphere. The Earth's magnetic field forms an efficient shield that deflects charged particles, etc. From being constant, the magnetic field has undergone many reversals, with the north magnetic pole shifting to the south pole. That I knew. Such reversals are almost always accompanied by a disappearance of the geographic pole, and that I didn't know. Such reversals are always accompanied by a disappearance of the magnetic field. The last such reversal took place 780,000 years ago. The magnetic field can also undergo excursions, periods when the field suddenly drops as if it was going to reverse but recovering afterwards. The most recent event of this kind, known as the lamp champ excursion, took place 41,000 years ago. 41,000 years ago, we had this almost a disappearance of the magnetic field. I didn't realize we went through that many periods where the magnetic field disappears.
I thought it happened like, not quite like clockwork, but like a lot.
Wow. Now, 41,000 years ago, humans were walking the Earth. So they survived, but they didn't have all the technology that we now have that relies on magnetism.
Well, that doesn't rely on it.
Yeah, that's different, but you know what I mean. Okay, should I panic right now? Should I
You'll
go
be
out and
dead
buy
in
insurance?
5,000 years. What do you care?
Singularity.
Yeah. Well, I guess if the magnetic field stops, that destroys our buffer against the sun, but we still have an atmosphere. So the atmosphere is still there to block the particles, but I've always heard that if you don't have a magnetic field and the sun hits your atmosphere, it'll ionize it and it'll also knock it out. So like Mars, because it has a very weak magnetic field, particles surrounding its atmosphere when hit by the sun weren't kept in orbit by the magnetic field, but flew out into space. So you'll see a general thinning of the atmosphere without a magnetic field.
Yeah, but it's not gonna disappear entirely. It's just gonna rebound. It may be that Earth's magnetic field was a lot stronger at one point, and it's slowly weakening every time this event happens. At which point, we may have had a larger atmosphere at one point, and right now, our atmosphere is a shadow of its former self. So it shouldn't all disappear at this event. It should just carry on slightly less.
They said practically disappears. Now I don't know what practically is.
Something to the regards of, so it's like at 40,000 something Tesla. I think it's 40,000 Tesla right now. If it disappears practically, then it might get down to say like 1,000 Tesla or something. In which case, it's still working. It's still deflecting stuff, just not as strongly. Like we'd be vulnerable to the solar flare activity more severely than currently.
I think the number was something like 3 to 7%. It was weakening each year. So we're talking 1,000 to 5,000 years where it could really significantly weaken. How much in effect would that be? Any guesses? And because that's not far, that's not a long time. 1 to 5,000 years is not a long time. It is for me.
Wait. It says it's weakening at 3 to 7% per year.
Something like that.
Is this compounded?
I would say sure. Don't know.
Is this like a compounded interest rate?
All I know, I saw practically disappeared in 5,000 years, and even the pole switching.
With the rate of human advancement, I wouldn't think that'd be a big issue.
Okay.
Especially in just the last 100 years.
I'd say that if we ever have a big solar flare, that in the 1860 something or another, there's something known as the Carrington event.
Oh yeah, I remember
solar
hearing
flare,
about this.
and that actually took out a bunch of telegraph lines and things like that. But if a big solar flare were to hit us today, and we thankfully have not had solar flare activity since 1992, I believe, that's hit the Earth. We've had some, but none that have actually hit the Earth. You know, we're kind of relatively left unguarded in our technological age, but if we had another solar flare that happened on the same order as that, it would literally destroy a lot of our electronics infrastructure. And those are like once in 100-year type events is the best guess right now.
Yeah, so, but aren't the majority of our airplanes shielded for nuclear explosions right now?
I haven't heard that, but what I do know is that there's things like power lines. Power lines go out because you get such a basically strong basically it's an electric field that's on your line that wants to, if you have a long wire and it's traveling in one direction and it interacts with a magnetic field, it'll want to bend. And so like it would bend out, you know, think long distance power lines, think all of our non-military grade satellites, there'd be a lot of things that would go out if we had a large enough solar flare, to the point to where our society would be significantly disrupted.
I don't know about that.
die, but
I think it would cause issues, but I don't think it would significantly disrupt society.
I don't know if you knocked out power for everyone on the in the United
That
States.
just means it'll be like exactly when New York flooded due to that hurricane, and it flooded the Verizon's cable vaults, and so they had to completely rewire New York within like a month's time when they never wanted to do it in the first place. They don't want to upgrade our infrastructure until there's a disaster and all gets blown away, and then we can use current technology to make it current.
Maybe then we should.
Because we have to.
Flare to hit us. Our energy grid right now is very outdated, and also not very good at handling renewable type energy. And there's a lot of people I've been talking to that have said that we're in for big troubles if we go for a lot more renewables. That we'll have to basically build a lot more infrastructure.
I don't see that as being a problem.
I don't know. I could
new more infrastructure is a good thing.
Well, let's say that you have a week where everyone in the United States has no electricity. How many people do you think would die?
Hospitals would be a problem, but they have their own generators.
No electricity. Generator doesn't work.
Well, why wouldn't the generator work? If the generator's not on, it shouldn't cause an issue.
Well, any type of long-distance power transmission, those things would break.
Well, yeah,
So-
but generators are not long distance.
Okay.
But how much generator fuel do you have? You only have a couple hours worth, right? You know, in case the power goes out, you keep running for maybe another 20 hours. Even like Fukushima, a power plant, it had, was it 24 hours worth of batteries, and then they had another...
They had, they had like 3 or 4 fallback generators, but all of them died at once.
Yeah. Well, yeah, all of them got flooded. But I guess the general thing is, I think we'd be facing a fair number of people dying just because you'd lose if there we have a supply chain that if any part in the supply chain goes out, then food stops going or water stops flowing and things like that. So how robust is our supply chain and how many things go down? I mean, solar flare activity to me is kind of scary. That I think we've, specifically, many of our satellites would go down. Everything that's not kind of military grade rad hardened satellite would basically die. And I don't know. It's kind of how much do we have faith in humanity as to how well humanity can cope without the devices that we've developed in the last 50, 100 years.
I mean, everybody always assumes that in an apocalypse type situation, everything just stops and nobody knows how anything works. No, the people who know how stuff works are still around.
Yeah.
They just might be preoccupied with something else.
Well, in a way, you can almost say natural selection would occur at that point.
Yeah.
Those people would stay around for sure, but there'd be other people there'd be a lot of mass rioting and craziness. It would be my bet. Once you start, if your food supply chains and water supply chains start to leave, there's a lot of crazy stuff that's going to happen.
Yeah, panic would probably be a big part of that disruption.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, everybody needs to start victory gardening right now.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
Unfortunately, it's kind of hard to do that from an apartment. I could do it, I just haven't gotten around to it. I need to install a water pump on my garden on my porch, but I haven't gotten to that yet. I'm trying to fix my car at the moment.
I got one quick story left that I did want to go over. We're talking about gender imbalance. And this is our friend China. And it's
our friend.
our friend. Well, frenemy.
Frenemy? Yeah, I'll go with that.
This comes down to what problems does a gender imbalance create? How much of a problem is it? China has the most gender imbalanced country in the world with an official sex ratio of 117.78 boys for every 100 girls. Over the past 2 decades, the rise in China's sex ratio imbalance has had a wide range of economic and social consequences. Researchers investigated the future impact of this rise using demographic and economic projections, and this resulting suggests that if the Chinese government takes action to rebalance the sex ratio, the long-term picture, unless they do that, the long-term picture is uncertain. The gender imbalance in China reflects a long-standing cultural preference for sons and was increased by the introduction of the one-child policy in the 1980s. The cause of the rising sex ratio imbalance is sex selection abortion, made possible in the 1980s. This gender imbalance at birth persists in the population as a whole. China has severely abnormal rates of excess female child mortality, and overall has the world's highest sex ratio in the total population, despite the fact that women have a higher life expectancy. The higher proportion of males in the population has had a number of effects. Among the economic impacts it has is to contribute to higher levels of saving as families compete for scarce females. There you go, Amy, competing for scarce females in the marriage market. In social terms, an increase in the number of surplus males is said to have caused a 3% increase in poverty and violent crimes between 1988 and 2004. And the Chinese government has recognized this problem, and they say they're trying to do something about it. They examined a number of projections based on this sex ratio imbalance and fertility rates, and whether or not appropriate policies are implemented. They find that by 2030, the number of unmatched, low-skilled men of reproductive age will be between 27 and 50 million and rising. Alternative scenarios in which gender rebalancing policies are implemented reveal that the economic impacts of such policies will take, and not all of them will necessarily be positive. Okay. Sex ratio imbalance. Does it have to be a bad thing? Well, I see. What is that? Blords?
No, that's something else.
Okay. All right. Sex ratio imbalance.
It's all based on their society. Guys are weighed as being better than girls for some reason. As far as like child-wise. It's also like the one-child policy.
And if you're in a, I don't think it would have that much of an impact on a place like the United States.
One-child policy?
No, I mean if you had more men, a significant number. Oh, I don't know. It's 120 men born for each 100 women, let's say. Well, women can do the same jobs as guys.
Let's simplify it down to 10 and 12, or 5 and 6.
Okay. Now, if you have a traditional culture, and in that traditional culture, men are the ones who, do all make all the money. They're the ones who make all the money. They control the financial markets, etc. And women don't really add that much value, let's say, to society. India. In India, same exact kind of a problem, because you have to save money for a dowry for when your daughter gets married. So having girls is going to cost you money. So a traditional society, I see that as a problem. In a society like the United States, I don't see that as much of a problem.
Having gone to an engineering school, I guess I see it as a slight problem. But I see it kind of also as an equality problem, that if you're trying to claim that men are equal to women, and you throw in that there's a fair bit more men out there than women, then there's a few things that happen. I think women are treated more as just being reproductive rather than on equals, because they're going to get shoved out of a lot of the the culture will be more men biased, because there's more men ideas, and there's more general, like, let's all be engineers, let's all drink beers, let's all do this. So if it's a small imbalance, I don't think it'll be a problem. But if it's a large imbalance, I think it might end up kind of having a interesting effect on equality.
Well, they're saying it affects their crime rate, because if a guy doesn't have a girl distracting him, he'll get restless and cause havoc.
Yeah, if that imbalance persists into things like engineering, you're absolutely right. That's a problem. Hopefully, as our society continues to evolve and women take on more jobs, such as in engineering, they go into science, they are perceived to have more value. I don't think it could be a problem. It should be a problem. It only becomes a problem if we don't change this imbalance in leadership roles.
Like I said, it's the culture of China. This is why they have the problem in China. It's the culture.
I thought they were saying it was because of the men didn't have as many skills, that that's why they were falling into more crime.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah, that's what I remember.
I remember reading. I read the article. I did read the article, but I was also playing a video game at the same time. So,
Yeah, if men and women have the same kinds of jobs, if gender doesn't play a role in terms of the kinds of jobs you have, that's where I'm saying a sex ratio imbalance at birth shouldn't make that much of a difference. But that assumes we're going to evolve more than we currently have.
Well, I guess any society needs a stable number of children. We see it in Japan, and I have a feeling that if you have less women than men, then women will be relegated to the role of being more the reproductive members. So I guess 117 to 100, that doesn't seem too ridiculous. But if it was, say, 150 to 100,
Yeah.
and as you push that ratio, there's going to be a lot of big problems. But maybe 117 to 100 just would reflect the fact that as a society we're not as in 40 years ago was you get married to one person, you stay married to them your whole life, and you raise kids with them. But our societies, at least the American society, is changing quite a bit. I would bet that the Chinese society is starting to go that way a little bit too, but I'm not sure.
You're right that the fewer women there were, they could be then perceived as being, let's have women have as many babies as possible. I think that's true. But I was also thinking about places where there is an imbalance, and I think this is maybe in one of the Himalayan countries where you have some remote villages where there are more men than women, so a woman will marry brothers. What will also happen if a stranger comes into the village, a woman will have sex with that stranger to increase the gene pool.
I feel like this was in a TV show once.
Okay, guys, you can get back to space. You're spaced off.
I'm spaced
Alright.
out.
I think I probably need to get going actually, but
Yeah, me too.
it was good to talk with all of you, and I'll try to catch you next week, and hopefully my iPad will connect better next week.
Great
Sounds-
to have you here, Chris.
Alright.
Yep, nice talking to you.
Alright. Bye.
Catch you next week.
Okay, Amy, oh boy, my mind is beginning to melt. Amy, what do you think about a sex ratio imbalance? You got your microphone muted. Haven't heard from you yet on the
Might
subject.
not be at her computer.
Ah, that could be. She did in the, I'm here, she says. And she did post wahoo, haha. It's being able to determine the sex of your child. This is the kind of problem that can create.
Right.
And that's the kind of thing, that's one reason why that kind of procedure really needs to be tightly controlled.
Yes. So many thoughts on that.
Well, you know, another possibility for these unattached males, these males who don't have any women to hook up with, hooker butts. Just use technology.
What did you just say?
What is this, Futurama?
Feels like it.
Futurama, AI, what other movies have that? Those are the only two I can think of at the moment. I mean, yeah, they're working on that in Japan.
It's big in Japan.
Yeah. I just think of that robotic butt they had on TWIS.
And this is going back maybe 20, 30 years, but there was actually, I'll call it a minor industry in sex dolls in Japan for the Japanese sailors going on these long voyages on the steamers and things like that. And I think they might have been like $5,000 or $10,000. These guys were paying for a sex doll. Now, I don't know how realistic or anything they were, but
Yeah, I have no data on that at all.
I don't really have a thought on it. Blow-up dolls would be cheaper.
Yeah. I'm sure the technology is there to do them better, but I don't know if I have no experience in this area.
And they can double as a safety device in the ocean.
Yeah. Right.
flotation device, yes, I see.
Double as a flotation device in the case of emergency.
My mind is floating on.
Airplane.
All right, we're heading towards 11 o'clock.
You're
My
heading towards
brain
11
is
o'clock.
getting
I'm heading
fried.
towards 10 o'clock.
Okay. If you guys want to continue, that's fine.
No, I think I'm gonna.
All right.